Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Commercial Connections Investing with Confidence. I'm Rene, the producer of the show. We're here with your incredible host today, Rene Nelson, CCIM, based in Eugene, Oregon. And today we're taking a step in the hypothetical direction. Today we're going to be talking about what Rene would do if she had to start a brokerage firm from the ground up starting today. So let's hop in. Thanks for being on, Rene.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this, Brittany. It'll be fun.
All right, let's jump right in. So if you were launching your own brokerage today, what's the very first thing that you do?
Well, let's go back 24 years ago when I joined my husband. He had yellow Post-it notes, sticky notes all over his desk. And I was like, what the heck is this? I had just left lending where it was very structured, very strict because you had disclosures and deadlines. You still have that in commercial real estate, but my husband he just had yellow Post-it notes everywhere. And I'm like, I cannot function with this. You know, you pick up a file and all of a sudden, oh, there's a Post-it note stuck to the back of that. Or there's a scribble and I'm like, what is this? Oh, that's a $10 million buyer that I need to call back, and it was like, okay, so that won't work for my life. So that was like 25 years ago before software really started to change the game. So today, if I were getting into commercial real estate, whether I was leaving residential real estate or I was going completely into a new industry, coming from a different industry, I would think about my database and how I'm going to capture names and phone numbers because commercial real estate is a contact sport. You have to be connected and you have to make connections. And you asked me the other day, what would be one thing that I would say to my former self? Commercial real estate is a contact sport and you really have to build relationships. And, you can go on LinkedIn, but it takes a while now. We're going to have a special guest and the next couple of days is going to teach us how to scrape LinkedIn and pull all that contact information off there. But you got to keep track of names and phone numbers and email addresses and important dates. So there is a software called RealNex, RealNex. I'm not sponsored by them, but I use it. And it is a software program designed for commercial real estate brokers. It has both a CRM in it. So that's a contact record management system. You can also create your marketing flyers in that. It's a little bit expensive. And I get this all the time from real estate brokers who want to get into commercial real estate. And when I tell them what they should use, they always wince and go, oh, that's too much money. Get a loan. Borrow money, put it on a credit card. You're going to just have to bite the bullet to get into commercial real estate. It's expensive initially to get in, but you have to have the software. So you have to build your database. You have to be able to build your marketing programs or your marketing flyers. So you're going to have to spend some money unless you go to work somewhere and they give you all that software. There's also some other great software called Buildout that creates marketing packages. I don't think they have the CRM built into it for the contact management like RealNex does. So if I had to do it over, that'd be the first thing that I would add.
Okay. No, I love that. I know when I was doing some research for this episode, that was the first thing that ChatGPT said was use RealNex. So I love that you said that right away. And I think there are like a lot for the listeners out there who try to, and I'm guilty of this too. I go around things and try to use different systems. And yeah, it's possible, I'm sure, with there's other things that build out marketing packets, things like that, but it's all in one. It's got the CRM, it's got the marketing packets, it's geared more towards commercial real estate. And I think that's really great. Does it have like a community base on there? Can you talk to any other commercial real estate brokers?
It does. It has some opportunities in there where you can email blast your flyers and your marketing packages. You can get on forums and you can also be on a receiving end if you want other brokers to be able to send you marketing packages. As you can imagine, if you're not licensed in all 50 states, you may not want every broker to email you every listing that's out there because it just we all have enough in our inbox already. So like, I don't use that feature. I filter that out. So I only get what's local in my area.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I feel like that's a super cool feature just for like maybe even building your contacts too.
It is. And the other thing, time is money. That's all you have in commercial real estate when you first get in is you have to use your time wisely because you've got a lot to do. You've got to go out and establish contacts. You've got to start learning how to analyze property. So you have to do that quickly and efficiently. And RealNex will allow you to put in like a rent roll and the expenses, and then it'll formulate that into the offering memorandum or into your broker price opinion, where you're giving the seller what you think the suggested list price of a property should be. And it's all turnkey. You know, you're not sitting there calculating it by hand. I think I told you this story. When I first got into the business, my husband was analyzing, it was like the first week. My husband was analyzing like a 200 unit apartment complex. Whoa. And this was 20, 25 years ago. So it was old school. We built everything in Excel. We did it all by hand. So we get this rent roll, and I literally sat with a ruler and read him every single rent off of the rent roll because we had to build our own Excel to look at what rent increases could be, when was the last rent increase for the tenants. And there's just a lot of mathematical formulas and calculations that you want to do to make some quick decisions to be able to be a good advisor to a seller. So 25 years ago, we built all that stuff in Excel by hand. We had worked like 10 hours, 11 hours that day, and I was totally exhausted. And I told my husband, I'm like, I'm done. I'm going to bed. It was like 11 o'clock at night. He was a late night guy. He comes bouncing into the room at about 1 in the morning. And he's like, get up. I just got the documents that we needed. I was like, nope, that is not happening. I will see you tomorrow at 5 a.m. because I'm an early morning person, you know. So sometimes we'd be like 2 shifts passing in the night. I'd get up at 5 and he'd be going to bed at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning after staying up all night. So, but when you start to analyze those properties, there's a more efficient way to do it. Something like RealNex, a piece of software using Excel. Now Chat GPT and AI is really kind of revolutionizing our business.
It really is. I think like I've known that like working with you and like, you know, seeing how fast it can grow. And I'm excited to see like hopefully RealNex is implementing some AI features. I feel like every software company out there right now is doing something with AI. So it'll be really cool to see like how they can integrate it in their system. So in terms of when you go out on your own for the very first time and you're making a name for yourself, that's a huge deal. And when you're competing up against commercial real estate brokers that already have a ton of experience, how would you differentiate your brand from day one?
Well, for a lot of brokers, they go to work for companies where there's training programs or there's other brokers to help teach them and mentor them. In Eugene, when I got into the business, there were only 1 or 2 companies, and then everybody else had smaller boutique firms. It was either, you know, proprietary software that people were using that they didn't want to share. So it took a little bit to break into the industry. And for me, one of the biggest things was earning my CCIM designation and being able to say to other brokers, hey, I know what I'm doing and I've proven it because I have the credentials. So let's do a deal. And the CCIM is pretty invaluable. We've talked about that on other podcasts. They give classes in almost every state, every city, because they're really education and informative. And so if you're trying to get into commercial real estate, I highly recommend that you consider taking a CCIM class. Even the introduction, I think it's 2 days, 2.5 days for the CCIM introduction class. That's an important class because that's going to just teach you the basic foundation of how to operate a calculator. And not just a calculator, but mathematically, like how to calculate net operating income. How do you derive at net operating income? Why is that important? How do you apply a cap rate? I mean, you learn all that in the introduction class.
Yeah, I think that's so important in a world where got a lot of people shifting to different job markets. And because of how fast things are on the internet, you can really get information about a lot of different industries very quickly. But I think the thing that if I am buying a service or if I'm going through someone, what I want to see is their experience in the field. And if they don't have their experience, accolades. So, like what you're describing, like the CCIM helps set you apart from other people who are breaking into the industry, but maybe don't have that designation yet.
Yeah, really, it takes about 2 years to mentor under someone to really learn commercial real estate. Whether you're working at a national firm or you're working for a small boutique, it really takes about 2 years to understand how to negotiate, how to deal with issues that come up during due diligence, how to keep a deal together, how to meet lender expectations, how to help a seller through a 1031 tax deferred exchange. And then just the lessons that you learn along the way. I kind of call that tuition in life. Going through those processes in different transactions, that's where you learn how to become better and either prevent it or advise your client better or make recommendations like, hey, I've done this a couple of times. If we don't get in front of a 1031 exchange facilitator now, you're going to have problems down the road. Or if you don't talk to your CPA, you might find out that doing an owner carry wasn't to your advantage. Now you've got a big tax consequence. So just having that experience is invaluable in order to be a really good advisor to your clients. And that just takes time. You need a mentor under someone that can teach you, and then you'll just kind of learn it. That was one thing I really enjoyed with my husband. He had been in the business 40 years. So coming from a lending background, I could kind of foresee problems coming down the road in my transactions. So I would often go to him and say, all right, I see 3 different scenarios here. What do you think? How do I prevent these 2 bad situations from happening? How do I help my client make sure we get this ideal outcome? And then eventually you learn it. And then it's like, oh, I understand how to do this now. But it takes you a couple of years to really get confident in that.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And like you're saying, coming from a lending background gave you a really unique perspective. Are there other industries that people could come from that you see would be an easy transition from that career into commercial real estate?
Yeah, commercial appraisers seem to really flow pretty easy into our business. There's a former commercial appraiser. She's an MAI appraiser like Zoe Schwartz here in Eugene, but she's in Portland and her name is Ray, and she works for not really one of my competitors. She's more one of my friends. We do deals together. She and I have a self-storage project listed for sale right now. And one of the reasons that I collaborated with her is she works for a company where they have a very large national presence. And so I wanted to be able to make sure that my seller had the national opportunity as well as local. And so I collaborated with Ray, but she's a prime example of an appraiser who left the appraising world to come into brokerage. And a lot of times they do that because they understand the market, they understand how to put together deals. And honestly, they're looking for bigger paychecks, which we want them in our business because they're smart, they're savvy, they're great people to collaborate with, they're free flowing with information most of the time. And they're a great asset to our business compared to a broker that doesn't have any experience or knowledge. They bring a property to the market. It's not priced right. And then they just inundate your email with, look at my property, look at what I have for sale. Yeah. But it's not really a great asset because they didn't price it right. Then at that point, you're like, you should probably get some education before you come into the commercial world.
Yeah. And then it's like the people you work with and you have a great memory. So that person will have a hard time being then known as someone who did come out of the gate when they were ready. They will more likely be known as the person who was selling something that wasn't as enticing. Yeah.
Most of the time, too, those real estate brokers wash out because they can't make a living in commercial real estate. They try, they see the potential commission, and that's all they get focused on. But they don't really serve their client well because they don't know what they're doing. And so, like I said, they don't price the property right. And then it sets on the market. It's a tough situation. And so most of those brokers wash out of the industry because it's a tough business. I mean, we're all on commission, but it's not so much the money, it's doing the right thing for the client. It's helping that seller get out of a tough situation, whether it's operational costs that are going up and driving them crazy. One thing that I'm seeing right now is the insurance for properties are really starting to make a big impact, and it's driving decisions for sellers. I have a client right now that's going to sell 38 unit mobile home RV park. Last year, her premium was $6,000. The insurance carrier decided that they no longer wanted to insure any buildings that were 20 years or older. So they sent her a notice in the mail and said, sorry, you've been with us 10 years, but we're canceling your insurance. So she went from $6,000 to $15,000 for her premium. And now I'm listing the property because she's just tired. She doesn't want to manage it anymore. She wants to move into a passive piece of real estate like a Dollar General or something where she just gets a check in the mail. So she went from 6,000 to 15. And I just got a quote for a new premium for the new buyer. It's going to be 20. So
that is wild. I know we're planning on getting into that a little bit more too. And I mean, man, like that's so crazy. It'll be really interesting to see like how that's all going to play out and if people can catch some of these things in time and what it's going to mean for new buyers coming in and like sellers as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other piece of advice that I would give to our listeners if they were considering getting into commercial real estate would be surround yourself with people who can do it better. So one of the things that I really enjoy about you, Brittany, is you're so much better with technology. Like you're faster and you understand how to do all the software for the podcast editing. And you're just way better at it. I could do it and I could sit there and watch YouTube videos, but it's going to take me 10 hours to do what you do in 30 minutes. And in commercial real estate, sometimes, and I've got a couple of really good friends that think this, they think they're the only ones that can push the button. And that's when you need an assistant that you can give them projects and say like, hey, create this marketing program or marketing flyer, or can you go out and do this research and then bring me back a report? And also a transaction coordinator is invaluable because a transaction coordinator is somebody that you pass the transaction to once you have a purchase and sale contract put together. And then they follow that transaction to make sure that deadlines are met and that your transaction closes on time. And that allows this is what I do. It allows me to free up mental space. So I'm not worried about my deal. Like, are we near our due diligence timeline? I don't even think about it until Molly emails me and like, hey, here's your weekly update. 1234 Main Street. They're going to finish their due diligence this week. On June 1st, they have to redeem another $25,000 earnest money deposit. And if they don't, they have to terminate. She's just always giving me those timelines and those updates and helping me know what's happening on my deals. And that allows me to do more.
Yeah. I feel like you've mentioned her like a few times on the podcast. And that makes a lot of sense because, I mean, already, you know, kind of the first things we talked about are like get out there, network. You need to be like really focusing on the property, the clients. And if you're doing all of that, I mean, why spend time like keeping track of dates? You know, that's like a simple thing that you can automate with someone, maybe, you know, with a system. But I think, yeah, you already have like a ton of meetings that you have to go to. And so and like things like that. So it just makes sense to have someone keeping track of those dates. Cause I remember we talked before about how you said you had someone who like put money down and then they went to like Europe immediately. And you were like, what are you doing? You're like, we have so much stuff to do.
Yes. I have literally had people who have made an offer and then be like, oh, I'm going to the East Coast tomorrow. And I'm like, well, thank heavens that we've got DocuSign and everything else but if they go out of the country,
Mhm.
we have to time that with when they need to sign closing documents because you can't sign documents often out of the country. A lot of times a mobile notary needs to go in front of you and have you as a seller sign documents. And
Okay.
so it's imperative that somebody's watching that, paying attention, making sure that the buyer or seller are going to be in town and available. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's super, super helpful. And my last question would be, what would you not do this time around if you were starting your own brokerage?
Yeah, I can tell you. I heard this on a podcast the other day from a business coach that coaches real estate attorneys, not real estate attorneys.
Awesome.
She coaches attorneys.
Okay.
And I thought it was brilliant. And I just let it resonate when I heard it because I thought, I've been in that situation before. And what her thing was, don't let yourself become stuck by not making a decision. So often when people don't want to make a decision, they'll just say, I don't know. So I don't have enough information to make a decision. I don't know. And you just push it off and think, well, I don't know, because you're afraid of making a bad decision or a wrong decision, or you just tell yourself that you don't know enough yet. And I thought that attorney coach's advice was brilliant because her whole thing was, you know enough, make a decision, take action, and move on. Because a lot of people, their to do list becomes so long because they don't want to make that decision. They don't want to finalize things. So they just think, oh, well, I don't know. I'll think about that some more. And then it just lingers and their inbox fills up to 500 messages, their phone's overflowing. That is a pet peeve of mine. When I call a real estate broker and their voicemail is full, I can't leave a message. I'm thinking, you cannot possibly be that busy. And I can't believe that your voicemail was full, that you wouldn't be able to take a message from a potential new buyer. Drives me
Yeah.
crazy.
I think I've heard you say that before in a meeting. Yeah, like it's so true though. I mean, like it's not that it's that you didn't have the wherewithal to make a decision. And now because you procrastinated, it's just going to keep piling up. I mean, so
Mhm.
just make the decision. And I feel like that can be applied to anything in life, which is so helpful. But mostly if you're running your own business, which is what this is, you have to be able to make decisions. Not only is it going to benefit you, but it's going to benefit your clients because you're going to come through as more confident.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And what her main focus or her main pitch was also, people that don't want to make a decision just put themselves into where they're not taking any action and not moving forward. And when you are getting into commercial real estate, it's really easy to feel like you're in a little bit of quicksand. Like, I'm making all these phone calls and nothing's working. And, I've got some good friends that have been in the business less than a year, and we're in an interesting market right now. And so they'll call me periodically and they're like, my phone isn't ringing. What's happening? And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we're headed through a different market. We're headed in a little bit of a downturn right now. And so they're trying to figure out, well, how do I make deals? How do I make my phone ring? And going back to Olivia, the coach for attorneys, it just goes with what she was saying is, if you leave yourself questioning and kind of being stumped, you're never going to take action. So just start thinking to yourself, what do I do to make my phone ring today? And then take that action, whether it's you call 5 people that you reach out to people in the industry, appraisers or title reps or different people that and get a pulse for the market, find out if they know what's happening. You just have to keep taking action every single day to stay successful in real estate, especially commercial real estate, because it is a changing dynamic right now.
Yeah, I think that's such good advice. Yeah, I mean, you really do have to get taking action. If you don't, it can cause like paralysis, and then you'll just never make a decision. You get too scared. Yeah, and it's just not a fun place to be. It'll come through in your daily actions and in your interactions with people. They'll see that you are just like too scared, and then they might not want to work with you. So it is best to just keep taking action. Like as scary as it can be, just keep moving forward and taking action. So yeah, I thought that was really helpful advice. I hope that someone who hears this today is motivated to know that maybe, they're an appraiser right now and they really want to get into building their own brokerage firm. I think that's amazing and doing your own thing. So yeah, I thought this is really helpful advice. If you like this podcast or you think it could help someone who you know, please share and like and subscribe. We're on YouTube, Spotify. You can find us on LinkedIn and me and Rene, as well as we're on Instagram, Facebook. So we'd love to hear from you. If you have ideas about things that you want to hear about, we'd love to hear what those are. And until next time, thanks for joining us.